Let's bring in now House Majority Whip Steve Scalise of Louisiana. Great to see you today, Congressman. You know, when you hear Senator Schumer and Nancy Pelosi on the House side say that there are not the votes for this, Senate not so surprising. Why is the story so different on the House side?
Well, Harris, it's good to be with you. And I think you saw Chuck Schumer having another one of his tantrums. You know, there was a Schumer shutdown not too long ago, and he didn't fare too well from that. And he won't fare too well here again. You know, when he's saying he wants to deny the president the ability to build the wall. Look, the president ran on securing America's border. This fight is about securing America's border, not just the wall. It also includes other technology that's being mentioned to scan vehicles, but also to protect our Border Patrol agents. Because, Harris, you see with this caravan that's coming over, Homeland Security has already identified more than 600 convicted criminals in the caravan, and they've been attacking our Border Patrol agents. We need to make sure they have the money to be safe, doing their job, keeping America safe.
Yeah, you know, there are competing optics in all of this and reality. So you're talking about the groups of caravans now, some 6,000 to 7,000 people who are clustered in Tijuana waiting to get into our country. And then you also have the death of a little 7-year-old who was in the custody of the United States after crossing over illegally. It is difficult at this point to come up with answers. So what will it take?
Well, and it was a horrible tragedy to see what happened to the baby that was being brought over, part of the caravan as they were coming over in Mexico. They weren't taking proper care of the people that are coming over. And what the president has said is, look, if you're seeking asylum, there is a legal way to do it. But frankly, the people that are in this caravan were offered asylum and jobs by the Mexican government, and they turned that down. So it's not about asylum. This is about the rule of law. There's a legal way to come to America. Just follow that process. Don't be part of a caravan that's, again, infiltrated by a lot of convicted criminals and potential terrorists. Every day, on average, 10 known terrorists try to enter America. This is about keeping America safe.
Congressman Scalise, what do you make of Senator Dick Durbin's offer to spend just $300 million rather than border wall type money like $5 billion for searching vehicles in a different way? Is that taking seriously on Capitol Hill?
Well, I'm glad that he's at least recognizing that you have to be more creative about securing the border and acknowledging that people do come over to bring drugs. There's a lot of human trafficking that happens across the border. In fact, last year, our ICE agents, which Pelosi wants to get rid of, ICE actually saved more than 900 kids from human trafficking. This is really going on our border. It's about border security. There's a legal way to come here. Follow the law if you want to come here. But we've got to make sure that we're securing the border. President Trump is committed to securing our border. Well, let's just stand up for rule of law.
But have you talked with the president recently about this topic and just gauged how serious he is about a partial shutdown?
I did. I talked to the president about this a few days ago, and he's very passionate about this. He cares about securing America's border. He talked about it and campaigned on it. And, of course, it was an integral part of the election when he ran against Hillary Clinton. The American people knew this was one of the things that was front and center, that you've got a president saying he's going to try to keep America safe. And it's important that we secure the border. It's a bipartisan issue. Wherever you stand on immigration policy in general, most people in this country do believe you ought to secure the border. There's funding that goes along with it. Let's make sure we get the president the money he needs to keep America safe.
Well, I hear a lot of positivity in your voice. I mean, when I brought up Dick Durbin, you see the positive nature of, well, at least they're looking at the situation because they have to, Democrats on the other side of the aisle. I want to give you last word on what happens, the optics, who gets blamed if the government is a partial shutdown, and how many people that truly does affect, because the numbers are moving.
Well, Harris, I think it's real important that we continue to let the American people know just what is happening at the border, just what kind of people try to come over illegally. Some might be coming over here for work, but some are coming here to bring drugs, to human traffic, to prey upon our young children. And there are clear examples. Again, last year alone, our ICE agents saved over 900 kids from human trafficking. So this is happening at the border. There's a legal way to come to this country if you want to seek asylum. Or if you want to stand in line like millions of other people that are waiting to come here legally. America's a nation of immigrants, but we're also a nation of laws. Let's stand up for the rule of law and keep America safe.
House Majority Whip Steve Scalise, this holiday season, thank you for your time and Merry Christmas.